Now, the European Union on May 1st, 2004 welcomed 10 new member states. Now, Latvia was one of them, and we're going to talk about the unique connections that Sweden played in that, what Sweden still plays in that role, the Baltic states and the Nordics. And with that, we're honored to be joined now by Her Excellency Ms. Karin Höglund here in Riga. Madam Ambassador, thank you for sitting down with us.
Well, thank you for coming here today. I'm very honored.
Well, thank you. Now, on this special occasion, on May 1st, 2004, I mean, Sweden joined in 1995, but it did play, it already has played a unique role. Those Baltic states, the Nordic connection. Tell us a bit of that history, why that's so important.
It's important to us, to Sweden, and I believe and hope to Latvia as well. We have very long-standing connections and relations. They go back hundreds of years. And relations are dictated not only by geography and history in itself, but also by, trade and people-to-people contacts, by culture, politics, economy, what have you. We thought then, back in 2004, as we believe today, that EU enlargement was and is sort of a strategic investment in peace, democracy, prosperity, stability. And so we were very much in favor, of course, of Latvia and the other 9 countries joining, as we are today in favor of sort of opening accession agreement or negotiations for Moldova and Ukraine, not least. But, and all this, of course, is stemming from the insight or the understanding that we are not only deeply connected, but we are dependent upon one another if we want to, if we want peace on this continent, and if we want to bring about a more sustainable economic development and prosperity.
Yeah. There's an interesting, also, I think, identity with this. I mean, the Nordics already very much close together, but also the Nordics and let's call them the new Nordics almost, the Baltic states, they seem to have that affinity towards each other. It's very easy for them to get along. It's very easy if you look at policy, vis-a-vis Ukraine, etc. Tell us why that is.
Well, them as in us, absolutely. It is. We have that affinity, and I think it's growing stronger by the day. And of course, now Sweden, as the latest member of NATO, a new ally, that is a manifestation of that affinity in itself. But we are, again, it's a sense of community dictated by all those factors I mentioned earlier. And it's a very sort of, I sense this every day in Latvia. It's a privilege being here, and it's a very easy, my task is a very easy one. Because I've always felt very warmly welcome here. And so no, the affinity is very much there. And of course my government, as you know, now holding this sort of the coordination responsibility for the Nordic Baltic aid. I mean, it's a very strong commitment on the part of my government to sort of deepen the cooperation even further. And we do that every day here. And
it's important work.
It is important.
Yeah. And on that, you mentioned defense, and you mentioned Sweden's now final green light membership to NATO. That was important. I think that was, but also I think it showed that was an occasion where a modern Western democracy very much went on that path, gave up its neutrality, wanted to join this collective alliance. We're here also rumors, and maybe not rumors anymore, but there will be a Swedish contingent of around up to 600 soldiers, we're told, that are arriving here.
A reduced mechanized battalion come beginning of January next year, yes.
Yeah. So what does that say about that security dynamic? I mean, it's very much a choice made by the Swedish people, but it's also very much, you can see that you're present, you're invested here. So Absolutely. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, we all know where that decision sort of is coming from. I mean, it's a unique decision, of course, to apply for membership. It's the first time since 1814 we're part of a military alliance or a defense alliance, it's a major step, but it's at the same time a very natural step because I mean working the Swedish Armed Forces have collaborated or worked closely together with NATO for a long time. And as you said, it was a decision made by the people of Sweden in the sense that it's very strong support for joining. It's very strong support in the government and also, of course, amongst the population. And yes, unity and solidarity is our guiding light, will be our guiding light, and by joining, we will be a very committed ally, and we will contribute, not only with troops on the ground, up to 600, but you mentioned, and I don't know the final number, but a reduced mechanized battalion will be here as from next year, and on a rotational basis. And we will bring, it will bring Leopard tanks with it and CV90s and whatnot. But it's a very strong manifestation of not only of our allegiance with NATO, but it's an investment in our common security. Mm-hmm. And I think and I feel it, not only think, I know and I feel it every day that it's very welcome here, and we have felt it from the very first moment we embarked on this journey to join NATO. We felt an extremely strong sort of camaraderie or whatever, support, I suppose is the word, from Latvia not least. Mm-hmm. And hence my job here is very easy.
Right. But also I think it's very cooperative. You mentioned also with those Swedish forces coming here, I think also as a defense player, Sweden punches very much above its weight. If we look at what Saab is doing, look at the Gripen fighters especially. There's recently also, if we scale that out, a purchase of, I believe, over 1 billion euros, I believe it was, also from Poland buying weapons from Sweden. Tell us about also that dynamic, because I think it's in the constellation of one of the Nordic groupings that also Poland is involved. How's that dynamic as well changed now, especially these last couple of years with Poland and Sweden and also the Baltic states?
Oh, well, I'm an ambassador to Latvia, not to Poland, so I won't go too deep into it. But of course, Poland is a major player in this region as well, and we have every interest in sort of deepening our collaboration with Poland, not only bilaterally, but also in this greater context. How that will play out, I can't tell you in detail. But of course, with the current Polish government, I mean, it is a very strong player, a major player around the Baltic. Not only around the Baltics, but Baltic Sea, but in the greater region, yeah, absolutely. But I did say that we will contribute not only with forces on the ground, but also we will contribute. We have unique capabilities that we bring to NATO, and we will of course also contribute at sea and in the air with those capabilities, and how and what and when, how much. That remains to be seen, but you can trust us. We are ready, and the mantra is we are NATO. We're ready. We are NATO. Feels great saying that.
Yeah. And congratulations that it is now finally done. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that mindset, because I'm also curious, because it isn't just politics. I think, as you said, there's also conscription, for instance, in Sweden, and several of the Baltic states as well. There's more of an understanding that there is a threat. Russia is a neighbor. Russia is here. It's something around the Baltic states. Have you, let's touch on that. How do you characterize that from a Swedish point of view? Is there a greater understanding and awareness maybe of the threat that's real? Is it the proximity? Because if you go out further away, it seems, away from Russia and in Europe even, that changes. That mindset does change. So tell us a bit about that.
I think it's, Russia's brutal full-scale invasion, unjustified, unwarranted, unprovoked full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 is a complete game changer. Complete game changer for not only for its neighboring for the neighboring countries, but also for Sweden, and we are a very in close proximity of Russia, of course. Though not bordering on Russia, but and amongst the general public back home, I think it has sunk in that Russia is and will remain a threat to our common security and to our prosperity for a very long time. And there is an insight that we have to do. We have to sort of minimize Russia's scope for action in every way we can, economically, politically, militarily. And I think I can't say that everyone back home shares that view, but the large majority, absolutely. And also, as I said, there is the support for joining NATO was and is very strong.
Mm-hmm. I want to touch on that, if I can ask diplomatically as possible.
Okay.
The issue of neutrality. I mean, we know now there is no more neutral for your country. You've made that clear. Neutral is made. It's now skin in the game. It is clear. The lines are drawn. It's the same for Finland as well. It took, I think, 2 Cold Wars. Neutrality fell away with just a few years of Mr. Putin. Is there such a way, in your experience and in your view, can you still remain neutral in Europe at this point in time?
Well, I can only speak for us. And we,
which matters, because you were
and we made the decision that we can't, and that we couldn't remain neutral in this conflict, and we will not remain neutral vis-a-vis further threats from Russia and other threats to our democracy and the European security order. And we didn't want to remain be bullied, and the principle of every country's sort of right to decide his or her or its security arrangement or path forward. That is a sacred principle. And
but nevertheless, I think it's a signal that if your country and your neighbor chooses to change that course, I think it is significant.
It's up to every country, I suppose, and I wouldn't dare speaking on behalf of any other country than my own. And we came very quickly to that insight after February 2022.
Let's talk again Europe as a whole. I mean, with European integration and enlargement, I mean, now we're on 27. We're looking at more enlargement again. We're marking here now 20 years of this region, 10 nations, which I think arguably have made huge contributions to Europe as a whole.
Absolutely.
How do you see the next future, the next enlargement, the next 20 years of the European Union? Do you foresee more enlargement in that direction? How's Sweden's position?
We do, and I think we're on the path of that happening. And as I said, we are in favor, of course, of opening accession talks with Ukraine and Moldova. We also, and there are other countries in the waiting room, and we believe in a merit-based enlargement, as do most countries, if not all. And I mean, it is in order to maintain peace and to bring about prosperity for all of Europe. I think enlargement is in the cards. Again, it's an investment in peace and security.
Yeah. Investment, economics, business, that's also, I think, something that the European Union is built on. Tell us a bit more about those kind of links between Sweden, Latvia, and the Baltics. Because of European accession?
Well, because of it was already prior to Latvia joining the EU, but of course it has grown over time. We have very, very strong economic cooperation, and you'd be surprised to hear that almost 30% of total foreign FDI, foreign direct investments in Latvia come from Sweden, and there are somewhere in the vicinity of 600 plus Swedish companies or companies with Swedish capital based in Latvia. That's a pretty big number. And I know I can go on and tell you other numbers of that we deem significant. But another figure maybe that is of interest is that 26,000 plus Latvians are employed in Swedish companies here in Latvia. And that gives us a certain, call it soft power or I don't know, strength various ways of describing it. But of course, we're present here. We have been for a long time, and we have every intention to stay. And it's not my job per se to learn more Swedish investments here. But there is a big interest in sort of not only maintaining business here, but actually coming here, from small startups to also bigger companies. And it's really interesting to see that they represent all walks of life. But of course, when it comes to very innovative and green tech, that companies in those areas, that's not only beneficial to Latvia but also to Sweden, because we learn from one another.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's also, as you said, historical ties, cultural ties, economic, political, defense ties now. I think there's a lot together in the future, and we'll hope it remains that way. Thank you so much for all those insights, Madam Ambassador.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I'm Sasha Farbach for TVP World in Riga, Latvia.